Hey everyone, and welcome to Cavalier Insider. I'm Whitey Reed, joined by Jerry Ratcliffe and Hoots. It's the big game tomorrow night down in Durham. Virginia, now ranked number 16 in the country, travels to face the Blue Devils in Cameron Indoor Stadium, a place that hasn't been very friendly to Virginia, or anybody really for that matter, over the years. What's your take on this game heading into it? Does UVA have any chance?
Well, normally over the years, I've been covering Virginia for about 30 years now in basketball, and in most years past, I wouldn't give Virginia much of a chance at Cameron, but this year I think they probably have their best chance since they did win in 1995, the last time they won at Cameron. The reason why, I think, is they have a guy like Mike Scott in the middle who can give them a presence in there and good perimeter shooters. And they play great defense. And I think those are the ingredients you need, along with some mental toughness, to survive at Cameron. And I think these guys have a legitimate chance. I don't know that they'll win, but I think that if they don't do anything too silly and get in foul trouble early, things like that, I think this is their best chance to win there since '95.
You mentioned the perimeter scorers there, Hoots, being a key, and to me that's what it might all boil down to tomorrow night. Because the way I look at it, Mike Scott, he can't play any better than he's played this year. He's been ACC player 3 out of the last 4 weeks. It's like, what more can this guy do? I think heading into this game, Duke is going to find a way to neutralize him. I would personally be surprised if Scott, did a lot in terms of scoring tomorrow night. So I think that puts the onus on Joe Harris, Sammy Zaglinski, and the Virginia players to pick up that slack, especially if they're so focused on Scott and stopping Scott. What do you think about that? Do you think Zaglinski and Harris can pick up the slack there? I know Joe was a little off in his last game. He had a season low of 3 points. Can they do it?
Well, you're right. I think they're definitely going to try to take Scott away. They'll definitely use the brothers Plumlee to try to push him further away from the basket. And he has to stay out of foul trouble. And Virginia, rightfully so, has to feed the beast. They have to try to get him touches and see if he can do something. If he can't, it is up to those other guys. And we've seen over the past 2 seasons where they can be really hot or cold like they were the other day against Miami. And if it's another performance like Miami, I don't think Scott's going to be able to bail him out on his own. So yeah, they have to be accurate, and they have to find ways to get open and make shots, because even if they do everything else right, I think that's one thing that they can't afford to be off on.
Now, the last time they won Virginia down in Cameron Indoor Stadium, that was 1995, Hoots, and that was an overtime game, 91-88, I believe was the final score. Clearly, the score, if Virginia has any chance, isn't going to be that high this time around. Virginia would like to keep that game in the 50s. But speaking of that 95 game, do you have any memories of Virginia's last win in Cameron Indoor?
I just remember that they were mentally tough and played good defense. And even though it doesn't sound like it by the score, that was a very good defensive team. And Duke at that point was also a good defensive team. But both teams had a lot of scorers. With Corey Alexander, Junior Burrow, guys like that, they could light it up. And that was the thing about that team. They were this far from going to the Final Four. They lost to Arkansas's 40 minutes of hell. But it was a team that was mentally tough, and they just never would relent. And I think that's why this team, I think, can take a big step forward if they can just hang in there for 40 minutes at Duke.
And the mental part of the game, obviously, is big when you go into a place like Cameron Indoor Stadium. Someone on a message board the other day joked that Mike Scott has probably already picked up 2 quick fouls even before the game has gotten underway. So going in there, Virginia has to clearly go in there with their minds and their IQ. You're gonna be tested in a place like that, I think, and especially if Mike gets into early foul trouble, that would just be a killer. Because there's not much depth after Mike with only Akil and Darian right behind him. So playing smart is obviously going to be big.
Absolutely. If Mike Scott gets in foul trouble, they may be done unless they're incredibly hot from the 3-point line. I just don't. It's not the same team without Mike Scott on the floor, and I'm sure Duke will do everything they can to try to keep him from being the key difference in the game. They have fouls to give with the Plumlees and Ryan Kelly, but yeah, I mean I don't think they have much of a chance if Scott's on the bench in foul trouble.
You had a great column, I think it ran today, on Bennett and maybe possibly being a young Coach K. You see a lot of similarities there?
I do in a lot of ways. They both believe in a lot of the same fundamental things: great defense, mental toughness, discipline, character, and they're both excellent X and O's guys too, and very good motivators. And that's why I like the way Tony coaches. I like the way Krzyzewski coaches. I know that's not going to be a popular theme throughout Wahoo land, but because they don't seem to have the same affection for Krzyzewski as a lot of basketball fans do. But I do see a lot of similar qualities, and the fact that Coach K is 65, or going to be 65 next month, I believe, and Roy Williams is 62. Those guys aren't getting any younger. Tony's in his mid-40s, I guess, and those guys aren't going to be around forever. So Tony could be the guy who's one of the future icons in this league, particularly with so much turnover in the coaching fraternity in this league the last 2 years.
Wahoo Nation is now foaming at the mouth, I believe.
They probably are.
Bottom line here, Hoots. Bottom line it. Put you on the spot. Give me your final prediction for tomorrow night in Durham.
If I had to make a big bet on the game, which I don't do, but if I had to, I would have to pick Duke just because it's at Cameron. If it was in Charlottesville, I probably would go with Virginia. But the fact that it's at Duke, I'm just not sure that this team is ready to actually pull it off, because I think this is the kind of game where Krzyzewski and the Blue Devils are going to make a statement. Because they've been playing a little shaky lately. He's questioning his own team's defense and its own ability to play together. This is the kind of game where he unites teams to turn things around, and that's why I would pick Duke, although I won't discount the chance for a Virginia upset. I think this is Virginia's best chance of winning at Cameron since '95.
I'm kind of with you. I personally see a game in the 60s or so, and maybe Virginia being within 5 or 10 points. But I think one of the things here is Virginia hasn't faced a team. I know Duke's defensive numbers this year aren't great, but the way Duke plays defense, that aggressive play in the passing lanes, I question whether a pretty young Virginia team can go in there and play the kind of confident way you need to against that kind of defense, which entails a lot of, you're going to have to get some easy back cuts for layups and things like that with Duke's style of defense. So I'm thinking Duke by 5 or 10 points is my official prediction. Any other things we should look out for going into tomorrow night's game?
Now Wahoo Nation's really steaming out there. I just think it's this is the kind of game where Tony is going to use as a teaching implement.
Regardless of what happens.
Right.
Yeah.
I think Virginia fans would have to be happy if they can come out of there being competitive down to the end instead of becoming unglued like a lot of really good teams, not just Virginia, but a lot of really good teams over the years have just melted into a pool of goo right there on Cameron's floor. I think this team, if they can hang in there, it's going to give them a confidence to go on the road, play better ball throughout the year.
Well, can't wait for tomorrow night's game, 9 o'clock on ESPN. You can follow us on Cavalier Insider and Twitter and the blogs, and we'll be at Cameron Indoor Stadium. Should be a really fun game. Until then, Hoots, thanks for joining us here, and Iman Shumpert, 19.